Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the studios of Grafton Community Television, located at 26 Providence Road. This is Meet the Candidate. I'm Bob DeToma. This afternoon's guest is Liora Bram. She is running for an open seat on the school committee. Welcome.
Bob, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you come in.
I'm pleased to be here.
Good. So as we were chatting before we went on the air, you were talking about being in public relations.
Yep, I am.
So what do we need to improve on just in the few minutes you've been here?
So far, so good. Let's
Okay.
see how I do. I've only been training people to do this for a while. Let's see if I know what I'm doing when
Okay.
I'm in the spotlight.
All right. So you're obviously a resident of Grafton.
I am.
Have you lived here a long time?
I have been here, it'll be 13 years in May.
Ah,
Lived in Cambridge, had a child, and immediately looked for a place like the small town I grew up in. And here we are in Grafton.
cool.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about working in public relations.
So I've been training people and helping them to tell their stories in the media for about 20 years now, a little more. And I've been an executive at international PR firms working both in the United States and in Europe and the Middle East. Have traveled around, worked with all sorts of companies and all sorts of people, and for the past 6 years have run an agency out of Grafton with sort of a virtual team, some folks local, some folks across the country, working with technology and technology companies and trade show producers.
Working in the Middle East must have been a challenge, I would imagine.
It was interesting. I was specifically working in Israel at the time when there was kind of this huge explosion of technology companies coming out of Israel. My family's originally from Israel. My parents are Israeli, so I spoke Hebrew, which made me a natural sort of choice for my agency to send me out to the region and try to drum up some business, which was an exciting thing I got to do when I was pretty young in my career, which, you know, stroke of luck, but really great experience.
Yeah. Did it take you some getting used to watching young men and women walk the streets with rifles over their back?
So I had spent a lot of time in Israel as a kid, so it wasn't actually that
Not a big deal.
surprising to me, I have to say. Over the years, I've taken friends with me to visit family, et cetera, and even though the picture seems sort of frightening, a lot of them have said, wow, I feel safer walking around in Israel than I do in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Just because there isn't a lot of crime necessarily, you know, the concern is more terrorism, I guess. But,
Sure.
you know, very different. You know, Tel Aviv is a pretty cosmopolitan city, and it just feels like, you know, any other sort of high-tech city in the world.
Sounds exciting. So you obviously have children in the school system.
I do. I have two.
Two kids.
Yep.
What grades are they in?
So I have, we have a 21-year-old who goes to the University of Iowa. She's a junior there. And then our kids in school in Grafton, we have a 13-year-old in the 7th grade at Grafton Middle School and a 10-year-old in 4th grade at North Street School. And he has Down syndrome. So I've gotten involved in the schools primarily through him. And I've served for the last 18 months with Heather Nadeau as the co-chair of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council.
Okay. There seems to be a common thread with everyone that's come in here related to anything with school committee, and that topic is mental health and special needs. And it's fascinating to me to think back when I was a young parent and then as a child, and that just didn't exist.
No.
And now it seems like it's front and center.
And I have to say, so giving birth to a child with special needs, I did not know before my son was born that he had Down syndrome. I didn't do any testing. So it was a surprise. And my experience going into school in the 70s and 80s, I didn't see kids like him in my classroom. I grew up with some friends who had siblings with special needs, and so I spent a lot of time with folks, but they went to separate schools or they were in separate classrooms, and I didn't really know what was awaiting my son. And I have to say that Grafton does an unbelievable job. My son has, you know, friends that are typically developing, friends that are neurodivergent. He's involved in everything. He does everything that all the other kids at school do. He plays sports. He's been embraced in the community, and I think the way we do things and including these kids is going to be life-changing for him forever, right? Because he's functioning and working with collaboratively in sports and in school with all types of people, and people are interacting with him. So, you know, I can't say enough about how important that approach is.
That's great.
Yeah.
What did you learn from your televised interview before the school committee the last time when that happened?
So it's interesting. I mean, I definitely walked in with, you know, a focus on my experience as a parent of children with special needs, and watching some of my the other candidates, particularly Graciela Vargas Baker, really talk about what does success look like for kids. You know, what are we doing to take care of our kids individually? She really gave me a lot to think about. I think we're very much in sync with some of these ideas, but she really, bringing her experience to bear, made me think about, you know, the way I advocate for both of my kids. And it was really, really interesting. I also just really enjoyed the process in terms of speaking with the select board and speaking with the school committee. It was a great experience, and here I am trying again. So.
Yeah. So did you think about that time when you walked in the door here today?
Well, I'm definitely using my hands a lot less this time. So yes, having seen the pictures and
Lots of rapid hand motions.
yeah, I was very, very animated, and as a PR person, I should have known better. So as you see, my hands are in my lap this time.
It's funny. It is a common thing because I find myself, should I fold my hands?
Yeah,
Should
yeah.
I do this? You know, it's like you're very conscious of that, and.
So maybe that's my number one takeaway from the
Well, it's
first
good.
go around.
It's good. You survived the experience. You learned something. So
Absolutely.
it's a win-win.
Well, we'll see how this comes out, but I think so.
I think so far we're doing fine.
Great.
We're doing fine. So, if you had to identify a strength of the Grafton school system, what would you pick to talk about?
So I think I kind of alluded to it earlier. I think that we do a tremendous job of including folks. Can always do better. I think that you know, the demographics in Grafton are changing, and we have all types of families and all types of kids. You know, what I've learned through the special education process is that we can meet every kid where they are. Grafton does a really great job of that and can continue to do it for all of our kids, not just the kids with IEPs and 504 plans.
Anything you'd like to see improved?
I would like
expanded?
Yeah, so kind of in the same vein, right? I think, so I have a typically developing kid. I think, you know, she's having a great experience at school. She's learning a lot, but, you know, I see maybe less customization of her experience. I think that'll change in high school, right? I think the high school offers some really great programs to help kids kind of zero in on the things that interest them. But again, sort of the principles of universal design for learning, finding ways to meet all of our kids where they are, no matter what they have going on.
Give me a little bit more about customization.
So I'll give you an example. So my son, last year in the hybrid year, his class, you know, was doing a Grafton history project. And sort of the assignment as it was laid out was maybe didn't play to his strengths, right? So we talked to his teachers about, you know, what's the goal of the assignment, you know, what 3 things are on the matrix that you want them to achieve, and we were able to work with his team to customize, you know, an approach where he's interested in trains. He's not great necessarily at writing things, so even though the Grafton and Upton Railroad wasn't on sort of the list of places, you know, historical issues or places that they wanted them to work on, we, you know, got permission for him to do something that interested him. He did a video format. We ran around, you know, all along the railroad and took video. He narrated it. He built it himself, and so he was able to, you know, meet the objectives of the assignment on his own terms. I feel that, you know, the schools are really open to other kids doing that, but it wouldn't even occur to me to do that with my other student if I hadn't had that experience. So maybe making that a little more accessible to folks.
When they come home from school at the end of the day, do they share information with you, or do you get the standard answer? Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, it depends.
But-
Certainly the teenager is a little less chatty sometimes than she used to be. And with my son, part of his individualized education plan, I get pretty detailed notes on what he's done, so I'm able to fill things in, which is great, and ask direct questions, so I get stuff out of him.
It's just like pulling teeth to get information out of kids.
Well, yeah.
But I know with my grandchildren, if you ask them specific pointed questions, you'll get more direct answers.
Right.
You can't just leave it as open-ended as,
No.
how was school today?
No.
Because you get the eye roll.
It was fine. Yeah. Well, it's really helpful with my son, because I can say, oh, what'd you do in Mrs. So-and-so's class, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
I heard you guys had a project. What'd you work on? So that's been helpful.
What do your children look forward to in the school day, or do they have something specific that when they walk out the doors, like, oh, today is...
Oh, that's interesting. Well, my son's a sporty, so he's definitely a big fan of PE. He takes part in this giant, I think, 50-kid soccer game every day at recess.
So his sports interests are varied
Yes,
and diverse?
very.
Doesn't
very.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and he plays, Special Olympics basketball, and he plays town soccer, and he's really, he loves sports. But he's also, both of my kids really love math. So
Really?
Yeah, they're very excited about math. I am not mathematically inclined, so it always surprises me. But yeah, they both love math.
Math puzzles?
Math puzzles,
Helping
math
with the
class,
budget?
Yeah.
Mom, you missed a decimal point.
Yeah, they're the one. They would catch it for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
they both
amazing.
love math, and both of them sort of like sciencey things. So my daughter's big on sort of independent studies. She's really into space. She listens to a lot of astrophysicists podcasts.
And she's how old?
13.
Okay.
And that's been another great thing. I feel like, especially in the younger years, my kids have both had the opportunity to sort of, pursue things that interest them with books they take out of the library, projects they're able to adapt to sort of their interests. I can't say enough about their great experiences in school and their ability to sort of pursue their passions.
So if your daughter said she wanted to be an astronaut, would you be surprised?
Nothing surprises me with these kids nowadays. Their world is like so big, and it's great, right? This week she wants to go to Juilliard and be a professional dancer. Next week she could absolutely want to be an astronaut, and it won't shock me at all.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, she could do both. I mean, nowadays people do 5 or 6 different things in their
They
sleep.
can. Yeah.
Wow. So do your children have some favorite, or do you have some favorite Grafton school traditions? Things on the calendar that are, must-dos?
Okay, so it's so funny. I just thought of one that at the time when they were at North Grafton Elementary School, every year when the Memorial Day concert came around, I kind of rolled my eyes and went, oh God, I got to move a meeting, and I've got to make it over to the school in the morning. And that's the first one that popped up to me, because it is, the whole school community together, usually outside under the flagpole. You're seeing all your friends and neighbors. You're all outside on a beautiful day. The kids are singing. It's very, sort of out of a movie, small town, right? And, I complained about it every year because it usually conflicted with something I had going on at work.
Sure.
But we got there, my husband and I, and, you asked me that question, and I went, oh, the Memorial Day concert. I cried at my last one. So that one, and then the other one that came to mind immediately is the book float parade. Every year, the second grade at North Street, these kids, build unbelievable floats about their favorite books, and it's a great equalizer, right? My son loves the Captain Underpants series of books, and so do the other boys who maybe are typically developing, and they've all, sort of put together this their floats, and they can talk about it, and it's always magical. I love it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you're with your children and their friends, or you're in a group of Grafton students, do you ever come away thinking like they've taught you something?
Oh God, all the time.
And I don't mean how to program your phone.
No,
I mean,
well, or I almost said VCR, but that would have showed my age.
yeah, big time.
No, these kids are really incredible and resilient and kind. I think I talked about this earlier, just, the way my son is included. There's just this group of boys. I took him to a birthday party recently. It was at a bowling alley, and there was laser tag, and there was all this stuff, and I kind of felt myself hovering over him to make sure he was keeping up. And, I heard my husband's voice in my head going, he's not a baby. And I sort of leaned back and watched how all these kids, they're fourth grade boys, not known for their empathy and kindness. And everyone made sure he was keeping up and he had what he needed and he knew when it was his turn. And, there's no substitute for that. I think our schools have really built communities that are just really better than ours were, maybe, or kinder or more open. I'm not saying we don't have, kid stuff, right? All kids are learning how to interact with each other. I think the pandemic has certainly affected interpersonal relationships. But these kids have really taught me how to be open and how to, care about your community. I think a lot of us could take a lesson from them.
It's funny because I know corporate executives are always looking for new ways to get people in the office to be more of a team, and they take them on team building exercises. And it seems like the kids, it's kind of built into them at that age. Everything is a team. Everything is we're all together in this. And
I hope they don't lose it, right?
That's
what you hope for our society.
Sure, absolutely. So moving forward into a hopefully post-COVID world, what do you think some of the challenges in school will be? We've already addressed mental health and special needs. What other things might be out there?
Well, I think our schools are a microcosm of our world, right? Kids coming from different families. So I think a lot of the challenges are the challenges we all face. We've gone through a collective trauma, right, in a way that I don't think most of us even realize yet. Some days when I'm walking the dog and I think back to those early COVID days and we were all home and that was so nice. It's kind of horrifying, right, when I think about that fondly. So I think we've all been through a lot. The kids have lost a couple years of social development because they weren't social in the same ways. We've got families whose livelihoods were likely impacted in ways, not everybody might think about. They've either lost a family business or, didn't work or had to take out loans to get through the time. So, we've got food insecurity and financial stresses that affect kids. We've got all of the things I think that we have in general. And, I hope that a lot of the lessons and the coming together that we all felt in the early days of the pandemic will get us through sort of post-pandemic time.
I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes to talk to the folks at home and address them and tell them your thoughts and get some help. It's you right over there.
Well, I'm really, really, I feel very privileged to be able to even throw my hat in the ring for school committee. It's been a real pleasure working with the rest of the board and the rest of the parents involved in the CPAC, Special Education Parent Advisory Council, to really take a collaborative approach to our kids' education, working with the Special Education Department, Jay Cummings, the school committee, to address some of the challenges that our kids with special needs had coming out of the pandemic has been extremely rewarding. Those are the experiences that I really want to bring to school committee, to find a way to make every kid in Grafton count, every kid in Grafton feel like they count, address inequities, inclusion across the district, and I really look forward to earning everybody's vote.
Thank you for coming in.
Bob,
Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's
You're
been
welcome.
a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thank you.
for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. My guest this afternoon has been Liora Bram. She's running for the open seat on school committee in this spring's upcoming election. On behalf of all of the people here that work at Grafton Community Television, this has been Meet the Candidate, and we all thank you for watching. I'm Bob DeToma.